celebrities went to Diddy's house thinking they was finna dance.
Motherfuckers be gay in Hollywood, you never fucking expected. They be having these big-ass mansion parties, and the mansion party, the whole mansion is a party, and then it's...
Picture this. Two Hollywood stars, each with their own spotlight, suddenly step forward and claim they've been cornered to give up something no real man ever wants to lose, their very manhood. Terrence Howard and Katt Williams aren't exactly Hollywood's quiet types, but this time they're making even bolder accusations. A-listers lost their man card at exclusive parties. Big names tried to get too close for comfort, and refusing to play along cost them dearly. If you think this is just another outlandish rumor, buckle up, because when two different voices start telling the same story, it's hard not to wonder if something bigger is happening behind Tinseltown's glitzy facade. But that's only the beginning of this twisted tale. What if the parties you've heard whispers about, the ones rumored to make or break a career, are far more real than anyone dared to imagine? Terrence Howard said he watched top celebs hand over their dignity for a shot at fame. Katt Williams claims it happened to him too. And no, he wasn't playing along.
How does that feel? You a grown-ass man. You gotta leave Diddy's party like that. You can't even sit down in the car. You gotta drive all the way home, standing up.
Now, rumors are swirling that these two might finally team up and spill every drop of tea. Let's dive right into the murkiest corners of Hollywood, where bright lights cast some very dark shadows. For years, Terrence Howard wore many hats: Oscar-nominated actor, R&B crooner, and the face of blockbuster hits. But behind the scenes, Terrence says there's a hidden cost that some stars pay to get that next level of success.
When you lose your man card, that's the only thing I can think of. You lose your damn man card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
I'm saying what I'm saying. You don't get that back. You come into this world as a man one time. You give up that right for anything, for fear of being hurt, fear of somebody doing something, for wanting to gain something. When you give up that man card right, you lose some spiritual energy that has always been pushing through.
On a recent podcast, Terrence dropped a bomb claiming that countless famous figures had to give up their man card at parties thrown by certain music moguls. And if you're thinking he was speaking in metaphors, think again. The way Terrence sees it, manhood is about personal integrity, never accepting a compromise that robs you of your dignity. Once you've crossed that line, he insists you can't come back. In his words, you only come into this world as a man once. For some unlucky souls, the desire for status was enough to make them crumble. Terrence then pointed his finger directly at those who partied with Sean Diddy Combs, alleging many got punked out and pimped out in pursuit of fame.
To give up your manhood, I've never seen somebody recover from it. That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Got punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there, because they get fluid, and next thing you know, once you go fluid, it's gone. You don't have any foundation to pull yourself back from, so maintain your man card, no matter what.
But the biggest gasp came when Terrence admitted Diddy himself repeatedly tried to bring him into that private circle under the guise of acting coaching and music collaboration. Terrence went along until his own assistant whispered a warning. I think he's trying to, yeah, you know. From that moment on, Terrence slammed the door on any future meetups.
Hey, did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there just looking at me, like waiting, okay? So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to, that's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. So now no more communication.
According to him, once a man like Diddy shows his true motives, there's no going back. It wasn't just Diddy though. Terrence said other producers came at him in similarly shady ways. His response? Threatening to knock heads if they even hinted at crossing the line. Of course, that tough stance came with serious consequences. Hollywood is a land of relationships and favors, and Terrence admits that shutting down the wrong people can grind a career to a halt. Yet no matter how many opportunities he lost, Terrence claims there's no price big enough to buy his self-respect. If Terrence Howard's story jolted you, keep in mind that Katt Williams sounded the alarm long before Terrence ever spoke out. Years back, Katt was on stage performing stand-up and dropping cryptic hints about questionable parties at the mansions of heavy hitters. People brushed it off, chalking it up to his eccentric comedy style. But then, Katt got more specific. He casually mentioned refusing dinner invitations from Diddy, saying straight up he doesn't let men wine and dine him. At first, it came off as comedic banter, until he doubled down in another interview. According to Katt, he'd turned down massive sums of money multiple times. The reason? Certain after parties or get-togethers where lines got blurred and big stars seemed willing to do just about anything to remain on top. Katt's accusations sounded outlandish to some. He spoke of an agenda, hush-hush deals, and powerful circles that decide who makes it and who doesn't. For a while, he was the butt of jokes, often labeled a conspiracy theorist. But now that Terrence Howard is echoing the same claims, folks are giving Katt's words a second look, and it gets spicier. Rumor has it Katt and Terrence might collaborate on a podcast. Imagine that, two men famously unafraid of stepping on toes or naming names, combining their receipts for the world to hear. Fans are already salivating at the thought of a no-holds-barred conversation where they map out who's controlling what in Hollywood. Some say it's bound to blow up the internet if it ever comes to pass. Dig a little deeper into Terrence and Katt's perspective, and you'll stumble upon a controversial theory that's been floating around for years. Hollywood, especially for black men, imposes an expectation of feminization at some point in a star's career. The legend goes that to reach A-list status, a black actor often ends up playing a character in a dress or adopting an effeminate persona in at least one major performance. This rumor isn't exactly new. Eddie Griffin touched on it in his projects, Dave Chappelle famously talked about it on Oprah, and Katt Williams repeatedly railed against it in his stand-up. The storyline often repeats itself. A studio bigwig or comedic scenario requires the star to don a dress because it's supposedly comedic gold. But after Dave Chappelle turned it down, he claimed he felt heavy industry pushback. Kevin Hart once insisted he'd never do it, only to end up donning a dress on SNL. Coincidence or hidden blueprint? People can't help but wonder. Katt claims the dress test is just one piece of a bigger puzzle. He specifically calls out an Illuminati factor, implying there's a secret gatekeeper who demands you relinquish part of your identity to prove loyalty. Whether you believe that or not, there's no denying a pattern. Many comedic icons, Martin Lawrence, Tyler Perry, Jamie Foxx, have had big hits playing female characters. For critics, this is all hogwash. Comedic roles require comedic transformations, and the success of these roles has nothing to do with hidden agendas. But for believers, the pattern is too consistent to ignore. Katt basically says that once you agree to put on that dress, you've signaled your willingness to toe the line, and in return, the industry might open doors you never even knew existed. Let's refocus on Terrence Howard for a moment. After his Oscar nomination for Hustle and Flow, he seemed destined for unstoppable success. Then came a bumpy road. People often talk about how Terrence got recast between Iron Man and Iron Man 2, citing contract disputes or rumored on-set tensions. But Terrence's side of the story is far less bland. He implies that certain Hollywood power players wanted him to bend in ways he simply wouldn't. While he hasn't explicitly said, "They told me to wear a dress," the subtext is clear. He felt an ongoing pressure to conform to a more submissive or milder brand of masculinity. When Terrence refused, the phone stopped ringing as often. He describes the modern Hollywood formula like this: the more successful men now are the effeminate. In his eyes, black men especially aren't permitted to be strong and commanding without being branded a threat. It's one thing if you're a white male lead who can be tough and respected. It's another if you're a black actor standing your ground. And so Terrence drew a line in the sand. No one would force him into roles that stripped him of his identity or made him a caricature of himself. He even mentions his father's advice: don't ever take the vertebrae out of your back. That refusal to budge might be why certain blockbuster franchises or major studio projects passed him over. But for Terrence, integrity isn't for sale. With everything swirling around, accusations about man cards, shady deals, emasculating roles, the public's response has been a wild spectrum. On one hand, critics dismiss Terrence Howard and Katt Williams as stirring the pot for attention. They note these two men have faced controversies in their personal lives, so they might be crying foul to shift the blame. On the other hand, a growing chorus of voices applauds them for pulling back the velvet curtain. Conspiracy or not, fans find it suspicious how frequently big Hollywood careers come with a specific set of compromises. Every time a new story emerges about a star rejecting these so-called demands, like Dave Chappelle or Monique, controversy surrounds them, and they allegedly lose out on major opportunities. Social media is buzzing. Some users say, "We've got more pressing issues than who wore a dress in a comedy." Others argue it's not about the dress itself, it's about the underlying power dynamic and what it symbolizes for black entertainers. Then there's the crowd that's practically begging for a Katt Williams Terrence Howard podcast. Certainly unfiltered dialogue could finally confirm or debunk decades of rumors. The real game changer could be Terrence Howard and Katt Williams teaming up in a formal setting. something, like a podcast or docuseries. Both men have teased the idea of revealing receipts, from text messages to personal accounts of hush-hush party invites. Considering how outspoken they both are, fans are convinced neither would mince words. Imagine them trading stories about the worst come-ons they've received, naming big-shot producers who tried to sweet-talk them behind closed doors, or pulling out details about blacklisting deals. It would be the ultimate inside look at a realm most of us only see through red carpets and box office hits. Of course, there's a question of whether the industry heavyweights would sit quietly and let that happen. Hollywood might try to clamp down, discredit them, or even unleash legal threats. But if enough fans rally behind them, the duo might have the momentum to break through. If that collaboration ever does see the light of day, you can bet it'll spark new debates about how far is too far when chasing stardom. So, what's really going on behind the scenes in Hollywood's glimmering skyline? Is there a hidden handshake that locks you into hush agreements, forcing you to sacrifice your dignity for a shot at the spotlight? Or are Katt Williams and Terrence Howard just stirring drama to stay relevant? One thing is certain, when multiple people from different circles, actors, comedians, even former insiders, start sharing eerily similar stories, it becomes harder to brush them off as baseless rumors. Terrence Howard calls it losing your man card. Katt Williams calls it selling out to a shadowy agenda. Both men claim the price for refusing to play the game is missed opportunities, blacklisting, and public ridicule. At the end of the day, you have to decide for yourself whether this is a wild conspiracy or a crucial truth about an industry that loves shaping narratives behind closed doors. Either way, these rumors open a deeper conversation. Should we demand transparency from Hollywood's gatekeepers? Does success for Black men in entertainment always come with an asterisk, requiring them to fit a more marketable mold? Only time will tell if Katt and Terrence drop more revelations or if the swirl of rumors fizzles out. But if you've been listening closely, you know that these are just the latest puzzle pieces in a much larger story about fame, power, and the price of stepping onto that glittering stage. Are they pulling back the curtain on a hush-hush reality or simply fueling sensational headlines? Share your thoughts below. And whatever you believe, remember, these controversies aren't just about who's wearing a dress or who's walking away from a questionable mansion party. They're about power, control, and the decisions people make when the spotlight threatens to shine too bright on secrets left in the dark.